The likelihood for a new low is increasing, but I was told on the internet that Bitcoin is going to be very bullish in the month of August, and maybe it is, but perhaps in the first portion of August, it is still in a corrective phase. So without further ado, let's just jump into it, starting off as always with the good old price statistics. As we can see over here, Bitcoin on Tuesday is more or less a wash in whether it's likely to close positive or negatively, with 51.11% of all Tuesdays closing positively since this bull market began in 2023. However, we are, as always, most interested in the average returns for both the gaining Tuesdays and the losing Tuesdays, with just over 2% gained on average for those positive closing Tuesdays versus about 1 3/4 lost on average for those losing Tuesdays. Put that into perspective as far as what that range would be. To the downside, Bitcoin has actually almost met that at 113,200, and to the upside, that give us a nice little buffer zone at about 117,500. Again, when we're looking at this, I really want to focus on just the relevancy of these major boundaries, because a lot of the time price action will kind of play off these. And in this case, we can see actually yesterday didn't really hit either one of these, but the day before that, hitting the top side, the day before that hitting both sides, hitting both sides. It's hitting both ways. It's batting both ways. It's swinging both ways. Beautiful. Anyways, you can see several instances over here, especially during periods of consolidation, where those ranges do act as nice little boundaries for scalp trades if you are in the more short-term time frames. So I would be looking at these as nice little areas of interest for the short term. If Bitcoin does close above or below one of those boundaries, that's actually a pretty damn good signal that we'll see continuation in that direction as well, just generally speaking. So moving on from there, I do want to get into and follow up on one of the setups that we were looking at in yesterday's video, which I have misplaced. Yes, it's right here. My misplaced setup. I found it. I found my misplaced setup. So this one did officially fire off. This is the daily setup for CME. It is just a very simple interplay between the red 3 EMA. Let me just double check. Yeah. And the yellow 21 EMA. And what we're doing here is we're looking at a back test throughout this bull market since 2023. And anytime that those moving averages have crossed, Bitcoin has had a minimum correction down to the green moving average in a profitable manner, over 78.5% of the time. So I would be looking at this as a good signal that Bitcoin is going to have kind of like a magnet somewhere down around here. Usually people use the magnets for like upside price action, but I like downside price action. Magnets go to the downside, and altcoins go to the downside typically. Well, no, we won't get into that right now. Anyways, lots of angry comments on such notions. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is that I really wouldn't be looking for Bitcoin to like rally up to new all-time highs or continue on with this with this trend, which I actually do think will continue. I don't think that Bitcoin has the highs in. This does not look like a high to me by any stretch of the imagination, but Bitcoin can rally, maybe even close to the highs, maybe in like 117, 118-ish region, but still, I'd be looking for that test down to the green 55 minimum before looking for any further continuation to new highs. I'll give you a few examples of this, because now that we actually have this one fired off, you can see the sort of interplay on this one in past interactions. And we can see the most recent one was from the 5th of June. And of course, Bitcoin, after the signal was fired, did actually rally up close to that prior high. It did get close to that prior high, but yes, it did come down to that green moving average before, again, continuing upwards and onwards. Now, like I said, it is a minimum target. And of course, in the event of a reversal, you can expect like massive more downside like you see over here. And in this instance over here, kind of similar to the more recent one that we saw, fires off, rallies up, fails, rallies up again, no new high, but fails. Then you get that test, then new highs. Same shit over here. Actually, no, yes, same shit over here, although very, very not interesting example, I'd say. And then same shit over here, but these ones actually go lower. So like I do say, it is a minimum target. Bitcoin obviously can go lower, but ultimately, I'd be looking for at least this price action to kind of fulfill this region sometime in the coming week or two, hopefully sooner rather than later, to be honest. But, seeing that it is the summer month, I do think that this one can be drawn out. And can Bitcoin drop a little bit lower than that? Yeah, sure. But keep in mind that the longer that Bitcoin goes sideways here, the more and more that this moving average will be naturally pulled up. So, if it does spend like the next couple of weeks going sideways, trying to rally and then fails, maybe that 55 comes all the way up to, 112, for example, which is kind of already the low for spot price action that we've seen on this, on this corrective phase. So it doesn't necessarily mean that Bitcoin has to see a new low, but, somewhere around there. and then we'll pick up where that one left off. Anyways, moving on from there, speaking about picking up and moving off, the monthly time frame, I want to again go over the red 5 EMA condition. A lot of the time, or not a lot of the time, every time the monthly closes drastically away from that moving average, effectively disconnecting, like you see in this example over here. Bitcoin more or less likes to trade sideways, not having any sort of meaningful continuation, especially on a closing basis, until that reconnect is had with that moving average. You can see this example right here. Bitcoin closes well above it in November, then trades sideways. Yes, it does try a new high after that. That's fine. And even again in January, but it's not until it actually reconnects and then corrects where Bitcoin actually, fulfills another rally. Same thing over here, disconnects, boom, 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 and then finally reconnects and then upwards and onwards. Same thing over here, same thing over here, same thing over here, so on and so forth. You get the idea. Anyways, that would imply that this condition can be met two ways. One is Bitcoin just starts a mega rally from here and rallies so hard, so long, so powerful, so girthy that the red 5 EMA is pulled up to the low, about $5,000 from where it's at right now. In my opinion, a little bit less likely, but hey, that is a possibility for sure. We'll talk about a little bit later how that would look like, how to kind of confirm that move is indeed occurring. But until that happens, much more likely to reconnect at some point during this month, closer to that red 5 EMA. Maybe that's, 110, maybe that's 109, maybe that's 108, anywhere around there, though, is kind of fair game. And again, not necessarily a bearish thing for the long term. I mean, we do expect those reconnects to happen. On top of that, for the short term now, we did see that the 4-hour hidden bearish divergence actually was confirmed on yesterday's video. And that one has played out a little bit, going up all the way from about 116 to a low of 113.5. Bitcoin now sitting in, a little bit of formation here. Do you want to call this a rising derp, or rising wedge, or rising piece, or whatever the fuck you want to call it? Higher probability of a breakout to the downside than the upside. Again, not a certainty, but a higher probability. And if it does, we do have an implied move to be made, and that would actually be pointed towards what was this weekend's lows. So somewhere around like 112, a little bit less than that perhaps. You can also see that blue moving average, which is a 377, kind of coming into that region. So if you do see a breakdown, that's kind of like the next obvious area. And just while we're here, I want to, acknowledge that, hey, there, as always, is a potential that Bitcoin, could flip around here and could be indeed bullish. And what would be the condition that would have to be met in order for at least me to say, hey, this is flipping around now, and Bitcoin's gonna make new highs from here? Well, I really need to see Bitcoin, at least on a 4-hour time frame, close back above 117.5, that is. Until then, this is a downtrend, and technically your last like important high was this high here on CME, which was 119.700. I think spot price action is like about $1,000 below that. So, if you want to go by the book, that would be it. I guess a little bit more risky until you actually wait for that. But I would say personally, like 118-ish, 118.5 or so, especially on a higher term time frame closure, that's going to start to look a lot better for a low being put in. But until then, like we said yesterday, Bitcoin can rally up just like we saw yesterday, but still lower highs abound on the time frames that actually matter. As far as higher term time frame stochastic momentum, I just want to reiterate, my general rule here still holds. Whenever I see all the higher term timeframes angled in the same direction, I'm just not going to bet in the opposite direction. It doesn't necessarily mean that we have to see a massive move in the current direction of its positioning, but I wouldn't be betting on the other side. That's what I would not be doing. In this case, the daily time frame continues down, coming all the way down from coast to coast. This one shows downside momentum as long as Bitcoin's below 118,400. The 2-day time frame is going to continue down below 120. I think that one, it does close tonight. The 3-day time frame is coming down. This one just closed last night. The new pivot is 119,600. 5-day time frame, which closes, no, this is going to be in a couple days, but still pivoted at 121.5. 10-day time frame, I'm going to have a fresh cross down on CME. It's already had it on spot price action. 118.5 is the pivot. Again, coming in from the similar regions here that have caught a lot of the prior highs. The weekly time frame's already leading that one too. 121.600 is the pivot. So again, to me, that just means I'd be a lot more cautious to the upside right now. Can Bitcoin have short-term rallies? Yeah, sure. But remember where those major turning points are, because until that happens, I mean, these are just, in my opinion, nothing moves. But that's, what I'd be looking for if it was going to flip it, I suppose. Anyways, now that we're kind of at the end of this video, let me just double check. Yeah, I think I've hit all my notes. We can go check out some quantum wave bands action. I've been getting a lot of questions about this as always, which is cool. I love that people are kind of waking up to this one, as are a lot of the, the other tools on the Teachable store, but this one, again, I think it's a really good sort of like training wheel tool for beginners to kind of give you an idea of what an actual setup looks like. I'm not saying that these are the best setups of all time, but they are workable setups. And most importantly, look, if you can't beat the fucking equity curve, then you might as well join it, I guess. You can also try this out for free for 7 days in the link in the description below for Teachable. But most importantly, it's a good sort of intro into what a real strategy looks like. It's like, look, you're not gonna win every fucking trade. You don't need to win every trade. You just need to have an edge that gives you a higher probability of having a positive net equity over time. And that's what we care about here. So yeah, it will take losses, of course, but the gains outweigh the losses and the equity curve continues. And if you've been on this channel now for even like, I don't know, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, you've seen this thing take some pretty nasty drops, but it always just continues to dig itself upwards and onwards. Regardless of that, I mean, I do expect at some point it should, most strategies do fail over a long enough period of time, but this one has been pretty well tested at this point. Pretty cool. Anyways, in fact, the most recent trade was indeed a loss right here. Small loss, but it was a loss nonetheless. All right, cool. All those tools are available for you in the link description below. As always, check it out for yourself. Don't buy anything without rushing in. Don't buy anything, rushing into things. Just give it the 7-day free trial. It's risk free. There's no strings attached. No bullshit or nothing like that. And you'll be the best. You'll be the best person to decide for yourself as always. I am massively underslept because we are in the process of setting up our new abode here in Florida, the beautiful state of Florida, the absolutely beautiful and fucking massively humid state of Florida. Elsa says she's not complaining. Neither am I. I do love it, but for fuck's sake, setting up a new place it really sucks, to be honest. But I suspect that by the end of this week, we'll be like 90% there. I think we can start to live streams again, and hopefully I can get the time dialed in even a little bit earlier because I'd love that. Anyways, that's you don't give a fuck about that. You give a fuck about Magic Net Money, and that's all that I have to say about that. So with all of that said, I'd like to wish you the best of best. Take care, much love, and see you hopefully Wednesday.